Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome again to another Talk Architecture podcast episode with your host, Naziaty Mohd Yaacob. We're starting a series on how to turn failures to success in the context of the architect and architectural practice and even architectural education. So this is part one of that. And I'd like to start off with my research on this and an article I found in LinkedIn entitled, What Do You Do If Your Architectural Career is Plagued by Fear of Failure? Now, this is under architectural design and is published in March 16, 2024. Powered by AI and the LinkedIn community. So this is interesting to see what AI has to say. And of course, what AI does is, of course, using ChatGPT, they would garner all these points and information and create an article about it. So it's kind of going to be very generalized. So we're going to start with this new topic on how to turn failures into success for the architect. So I'm just going to go one by one. There are, shall we say, 7 points here. And the points are, there are different topics and paragraphs. And I'm going to read on them and comment on them from my perspective. Number one is acknowledge your fear. When you ask the question, what do you do if your architectural career is plagued by fear of failure? So the first is to acknowledge your fear. The second is to reframe your perspective. 3, set realistic and attainable goals. 4, seek support and feedback. 5, practice self-compassion and gratitude. 6, take action and learn from failure. 7, here's what else to consider. Now, I was doing my own research and I'm also compiling a lot of data and research on this for my program, my own online coaching program. So I'd be very critical about an AI generated article, obviously, but I'm going to give it a chance to actually expand on that knowledge that is gained from this AI generated article and see what is lacking in terms of what I know now. So the first one, acknowledge your fear. It says here that the first step to overcoming fear of failure is to recognize and accept it. Don't deny or avoid it, but rather acknowledge it as a natural and normal emotion. Fear of failure can stem from various sources, such as perfectionism, low self-esteem, high expectations, or past experiences. Try to identify the root cause of your fear and how it affects your thoughts and feelings and actions. By acknowledging your fear, you can start to challenge and change it. Now, what would an AI-generated article how would it be able to assist someone dealing with their mental health, actually? Usually you need a therapist, usually you need an experienced coach or counselor in order to listen to the person and their specific problems, because not everyone is the same, and it's to do with mental health. There's a whole deep ocean, more than ocean, or like a universe inside of a person that needs to be dealt with. So how could, an article like this help a person? Maybe it helped to reflect, and then they themselves could think about these points or keywords. We start with the point of fear of failure. To me, my critical comment is just saying the topic title and also saying the fear of failure is very generic and in a way not helpful. I mean, failure itself is so general already, and fear itself is very general already. So when we get to the bottom of failure and the fact that you have a feeling overcome you when you're being rejected at that particular moment. And that feeling, whether you want to accept it, whether you want to embrace that feeling in your body, or you're going to deflect it into space and acknowledge it there, but not being embraced by your body. A human being who has not been able to deflect it will absorb it, and later that feeling will come again and again. So why I'm saying this is because there are a lot of emotions happening: shame, guilt, and then it will lead to a depression, or a sense of maybe anxiety, and due to what's going to happen to me if you're being rejected. And then there'll be some anger as well, some feelings that, these are valid feelings. Of course, we know now that this is part of you, and we deem it negative, but it's just a part of us that is giving us lessons. So there is essentially that thing missing in this first paragraph. It's not like a procedure thing, like one thing fits all, It is a topic that is necessary for you to be listened to and be able to express yourself. But I guess this is kind of a general way of approaching if it's an AI-generated article. I touch upon that in the first 7 minutes just to get us settled with this idea of how to turn failures into success. So for a person who's done architecture practice and was educated in an architectural school, certain expectations are being put on us to perform, and we were educated and we learn about ourselves with other architects in mind and being in an architecture office. And sometimes we get caught in some sort of like a cage, like a cave or a cage, in a way that we use these preconceived ideas of how we should be to gauge ourselves. And if we don't do those certain things, we are deemed a failure. Now, we know that. I mean, we have understood the game, or what is expected of us in an architecture industry. You got to learn Revit, you got to learn Beam, you got to, there are all these things. And some people who are not educated with digital or with technology as much as others, they sort of have to be able to be the manager or the director, or some sort of skill that doesn't need to be using the computers a lot. So we're negotiating ourselves in the architectural office and the work environment and trying to find jobs and getting the right remuneration packages and stuff like that. We're trying to be comfortable to be in this industry. And we also have other things that we have to deal with outside of the architectural world. So the game is played, like I said just now, the cave or the cage metaphor. It's like in architecture practice, we can be stuck in that environment and we don't have any idea how to look at ourselves. So this is the problem with the architectural profession in a way. The ability for the person not to be able to look at themselves away from the architectural practice. So that's necessary to actually understand your frustration and the first paragraph just now. The second topic says reframe your perspective. And this word is actually, I'm trying to bridge from number 1 to number 2. Number 2 says, the second step to overcoming fear of failure is to reframe your perspective. Instead of seeing failure as a sign of weakness, incompetence, or rejection, see it as an opportunity for growth, learning, and improvement. Failure is not the end of your journey, but rather a feedback mechanism that helps you to adjust your course and refine your skills. Reframing your perspective can help you cope with setbacks, embrace challenges, and celebrate progress. Now, of course, it's like a cheerleading at the end, but this paragraph is the connective, and I bridged it with, it's reframing your perspective is just, do you need to reframe, or do you need to totally get rid of the old perspective and look at yourself deeper and reflect on how you see things, how your values are, how you align your beliefs. And it is bigger than just reframing your perspective. It's not just like taking another frame and looking at it differently. Because, as you know, this is a psychological issue, fear of failure. Consistently, that's the term that is being used, right? So, it's true that you want to see failure as a sign, as an opportunity for growth, learn, and improvement. No, it's not there and then that you're going to do it naturally. How are you going to cope with the feeling of being rejected at that time where all these other emotions came together? Is how are you going to turn it around? What you do is dust yourself off the dust of this failure, and then you start writing and finding out for other jobs, or whatever that rejection that may have occurred in practice. It could be that you're not doing well on a project and there were a lot of things happening to you and you make mistakes after mistakes, and the boss didn't like it and took you out of the project and someone else took over. It could be that a bigger psychological issue about maybe you have sort of a lack of desire to move on in architecture, or something you want to refresh yourself by doing something else. That is kind of like fundamental, you see. It's not just reframing your perspective, but I don't want to accept the point that it's a small thing. Even though it's a small mistake, there is an underlying problem about the whole thing, in which you have adopted you have adopted this sense of value or belief of certain way of doing things. Just now they mentioned about perfectionism and all that we may be in the architecture architecture profession, is that it is a profession that you need to pay attention to details. But there is this collaboration going on between you and the other consultants, you and a client themselves, you and the contractors. So there's always a reasoning behind the detail, paying attention to detail, or designing a detail that is part of the project itself, or the setting out, the drawings, yeah? And how the drawings, if it's lacking in information, could come back to you. So it is not perfectionism. It's just that is how you need to achieve. That's what you need to achieve in order to get the project done. And the architecture profession requires that you pay attention to detail. It's not perfectionism in a way that we look at perfectionism psychologically. because people say, oh, red flag. This person is always looking at perfectionism. Yes, in romantic relationships or some sort of cordial relationship of friendship, you have this issue of red flags. But we're working in a profession where you got to take care of business because it's all about money and cents. And timing is important, scheduling and getting it done, deadlines, these are critical to the finances that has been put forth or being invested upon in this project. So you, as a professional, that's the architect. That is the role of the architect. So if you can't see that the role of the architect, there is a lack of focus, a lack of concentration. You don't feel like you want to be an architect. That needs to be a radical shift rather than just reframing your perspective. So, yeah, we just move along now to the third one. I'm keeping time here. Number 3, set realistic and attainable goals. The third step to overcoming fear of failure is to set realistic and attainable goals. Sometimes fear of failure can arise from setting goals that are too vague, too ambitious, or too dependent on external factors. Okay, this is trying to say that you can only control yourself and not others. Okay, but you are in collaboration. So it says here also that these goals can make you feel overwhelmed, frustrated, or powerless. To avoid this, set goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. SMART, S-M-A-R-T. These goals can help you focus on what you can control, track your performance, and celebrate your achievement. It's fine if you're not collaborating with others, because then you have this set of drawings that you need to finish, and you finish it on time, and you got help from your senior architects and others to get the work done and complete the drawings to be as good as it can be, in order to get it to another point where it can help with the process in terms of construction and so on. So I think it's very general. This set realistic and attainable goals. It's not specific to architecture practice, to be honest. In architecture practice, there are no vague or vague idea. It warrants that you need to have certain criteria being met. So I don't think that this point number 3, everybody has to have goals in terms of finishing the project. And it's whether you can finish it, you have the time to do it. So, and you're not doing it alone, you're doing it with others in collaboration. So there needs to be some adjustment and some sort of decision to be made in order for you to be able to have time for yourself and not just stuck with the project and doing overtime unnecessarily. Yeah, it is kind of general there. So the fourth point, I'm going to go through the fourth point, 5th, 6th, and 7 quickly so that we can finish this podcast in the best and immaculate way as we can. Number 4, seek support and feedback. I mentioned about that just now. So it says here as well as I mentioned the bridge to this point. The 4th step is to overcome fear of failure, is to seek support and feedback. Fear of failure can make you feel isolated, ashamed, or defensive, but you don't have to face it alone. Seek support from your colleagues, mentors, friends, and family. Can offer you encouragement, advice, or constructive criticism. Feedback can help you identify your strengths, weaknesses, and areas for improvement. Support and feedback can also help you build your confidence, resilience, and network. All generic, isn't it? Number 5, practice self-compassion and gratitude. The 5th step to overcoming fear of failure is to practice self-compassion and gratitude. Fear of failure can make you harsh, judgmental, or pessimistic. But you don't have to be your own worst enemy. Practice self-compassion by treating yourself with kindness, understanding, and forgiveness. Recognize that you're not perfect and that you are not alone and that you are doing your best. Practice gratitude by appreciating what you have and what you have done, what you have learned. Self-compassion and gratitude can help you reduce stress, increase happiness, and enhance well-being. Again, this article is for architects. This article says in the beginning that it's about architectural career, but that point number 4 and point number 5 are too generic. Point number 6, take action and learn from failure. The sixth and final step to overcoming fear of failure is to take action and learn from failure. Fear of failure can paralyze you, prevent you from trying new things, or make you give up easily, but you don't have to let fear stop you. Take action by breaking down your goals into small, manageable steps, planning ahead and preparing for possible obstacles. Learn from failure by analyzing what went wrong and went right and what you can do differently next time. Taking action and learning from failure can help you overcome fear, improve your skills, and achieve your goals. So, number 7 is basically, here's what else to consider. This is a space to share examples, stories, and insights that don't fit into any of the previous sections. What else would you like to add? So I gathered that this article is an article that from the community, they will add to this article so that it will be what others are saying. So what others are saying here, number 4, no, they're not saying it. It's like I have to say it. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is it has to be specific to the person involved. But one thing we know that rather than be generic, it could be helpful that this article point out specific things in the architectural career, which is pointing to specific cases that happen to someone. As we mentioned earlier, setting goals. It is quite detailed how you set goals in your practice, and this is all the self-compassion and gratitude and taking action and learn from failure thing. That is ongoing because every day is a new day, and sometimes you're just busy working your socks off on a project to actually be conscious about whether you are being compassionate with yourself. But taking time out and reflecting and pausing and getting second opinions is a good idea. If you are the boss, you'll be getting second opinion from other people, maybe your client or, not necessarily your client because you want to be looking like you're the expert with your client, but maybe another people who is at your level. And much of the thing about architectural practice is to do with the bottom line and profits as well, so that you can still keep the architectural practice alive. And those people under you, they go to the site and you go to the site too. You do some of the work. But those people working under you, designing and conceptualizing and going through the different stages, they report back to you and they tell you what's happening with the project, and then you could be assured that it's complementing or following the time scheduling and the project management aspects of it. Now, conflicts will arrive because different projects have different groups of people and different clients. Obviously, the client will set the tone for how you will deal with the project, obviously. if the client is demanding or more critical, then you need to negotiate that and try to deal with the client accordingly. So there could be other different functions and role and individuals coming into a project that could help or not help the project as we know it. So there's a lot of things to do with dealing with people. And among all this is the failure is in the eyes of those people expecting something from you. Or the failure comes from you thinking that you're a failure. So the second one is the right one. You're thinking that you failed in something, but if you keep on thinking that you're a failure, it's not going to help you negotiate your architectural career. And if you keep blaming it with others as well, it's not going to help you. Just say you know that the problem is you're not being conscious about something and deal with it in a way that other people will deem it to be satisfactory. So you could blame with it. Maybe you have a reason to blame it with others. They are too critical or they have unreasonable expectations. You could blame it on them for sure. But that's a waste of time of your thinking because you can't control other people. So you need to actually reflect on what you could have done better and what skills you needed next time. And the communication aspect is so crucial. I mean, in all aspects of life and relationships anyway. And how you communicate could be defensive, like using an email so that you see black and white. And a lot of dynamics could come into fore. And some environment are quite toxic in a way that, you need to be able to negotiate that. So one thing for sure, the mental health of the person who's in architecture practice and education, how they would know how to regulate the emotions and take into account the collaboration and the communication aspect of it is kind of crucial. Seeing eye to eye about things, knowing the objectives and what is to be fulfilled, and having a safe space to work your ideas, and not being subjected to poor judgment or evaluation that is not balanced from your superiors. It's kind of critical for you to sustain yourself in an environment. So we're going back to the point where this article talks about the fear of failure, and it can be alleviated by a safer and less toxic or a very genuine and nurturing environment in which a lot of people will find that great to be working in, and they could flourish in such environment. And there's less of, there are places where there are less trust among each other. And the truth needs to be spoken if there is a problem, and it's not easy for some people to take. So really, you can only control yourself when it comes to taking failure to success. So this article allows us to see in a general way, to pick out and tease out the points that we will be discussing later in part 2 and 3. And I would be going into mental health and the architect aspect as well. in my part 2 and 3, and I hope that you can listen to that later. Thank you very much.